Okay, hey team, welcome in. Wish Thinker here, and I want to talk about my tarot journal. So I am going to try my best to switch between the camera and the pictures I took of the journal, which will be in better focus. So this is a Paper Blanks Maya Blue. That's the pattern. It's got a nice texture to it. Grande format, so grande size, 240 page unlined hardcover journal. Um, and I'll go through some of the pages here, I'll talk about them, and then we'll go in depth with the pictures I took, and we'll go through what I've set up on this journal so far. I do have a regret in getting so much of it set up before I was like good and ready to completely fill it out. So if you're planning to do like a big fancy thing, um, don't let it be the first project, you know? But that's fine. So in my like learning of tarot and astrology, I wanted to learn about number theory, about numerology. So this ended up being my list of the information that I concocted and what I wanted to do with it. And this I created after learning about some numerology, and then this incorporates astro aspects. So I'm combining things from Rob Hand and Aleo Lopez. And then this was the notes I took from. I read a few books from the library about numerology. I wanted to know, like, tell me about two. What does the number two mean on a tarot card? In like a destiny number or a life path number? Like, what does two mean? And I couldn't really get that information. I couldn't get the information I wanted. The information I was finding from the numerology sources I was using and the tarot sources as well, I just could not find something that I thought was working with the systems I work with. But then, regardless, I did write down all of those like numerology, destiny, birthday number type stuff. I did write down all of those equations and then what the number values of each letter is, so I can calculate that for myself or anybody anytime. And then I got into using Etsy stickers. So let's go over this in more detail. So this is the number theory that I ended up adopting after all my other kind of studies. So I have the number here, and then I have a little symbol that I have been using to help like describe what the number is or like what it means to me. And then there is and then like another for some of these other shapes, just a different variation on that shape. And then the astrological symbols, um, as far as I'm aware of them. And then just some information, some key words. Uh, so six, decision, choice, commitment, learning. A pattern of flow brings change to the pattern. This is decision, choice, commitment. That's going to be more of like a tarot based and not necessarily how I treat like the idea of this shape here. Again, this book was started a long time ago and I keep learning, and so if anything, it's just like a snapshot of my ideas at that time. And then just some notes about 10 and 0 and some of the glyphs. I actually never remember if it's circle of spirit or circle of soul and crescent of soul or crescent of spirit. I don't remember. But all of the different astrological symbols come from these three pieces. And so this is more specifically an astrological approach that I took from Rob Hand's horoscope symbols. I read that book and took notes in a different journal like this. And then I was attending some lectures online with Alejo Lopez, and one of them he went over the like aspect doctrine. Um, so I've got that here. Again, these are the astrological symbols and the number that relates to them. And then on the next page, I've got 5 and 7. 6 is back over on the other side. 5, 7, and 9 are special. These are quintiles, septiles, I believe. And I don't remember what these are called even. So that's all astrological. And then for the numerology, like basics, what I was able to find, I read quite a few books from the library, but this is the one that I took the notes on. So the notes from Gene Simpson's numerology book are in black here. And then I also looked at tarotpower.com. No, Tarot Pewter. Let's just read the book. I don't need to read the poorly photographed message. Tarotparlor.com. And then I looked at tarotparlor.com and I took notes from that site in addition to these notes and I wrote them in blue. And then labyrinthos.co in green and thesimpletarot.com in purple. And then I started developing these little symbol glyphs to help me understand more about, like, we've got 1 and then a 2 and then the 3 is like kind of the acknowledgement of the 2, like the space between. 4 gives structure because of the symmetry involved, and like all of our houses and our buildings kind of come from this locked in structure. Keep going with different geometries. And then these are the basics from like every different book. This is, if you go get a book on numerology or on like numbers from the esoteric section of the library, this is the information it's going to tell you. So for your destiny number, you would write out all the letters of your full name, and then each of the letters have one of these 9 number values, and then you would add up, you would substitute the numbers for your letters and add all of that up, and then reduce the numbers down. You can look into numerology if you're into it. But that's the like intro to numbers section that I have here in my tarot journal. And then the journal itself, with all the pages filled in, would be its own, I guess, example or archive of what the numbers mean, specifically to tarot, specifically to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is what I'm using, and what this book is filled with. So then right after the next page, I have a couple, I think I have a page, no I don't. I don't have any pages in the beginning for a table of contents. It would have to go here on this cover paper. And then right after the number theory, I go into the fool's journey through each suit. So I've got to erase that pencil. This was an idea that maybe I was going to have information about all the different colored backgrounds here, listing like what they might mean. But instead I put down my stickers for the Fool's Journey through the entire suit of wands and the court card, right? Like, what is his progression or my progression or anyone's progression through this story? And then I do it for cups, pentacles, and swords. And I was like running out of some of my sticker sizes, so some of them were different. That's okay. And then I come into some blank pages, so I haven't put anything here. So that's 1, 2, 3 spreads. So here I might put colors and symbols. And then I have some things filled out. So one of the things I put in here, and I've got cards from a different deck, my angel deck in here. So sometimes there's drawings that don't belong to the Rider-Waite-Smith. But here I have birds, and I've drawn all the birds I could find in the deck. And so one thing I could notice by doing this is that only sword court cards have these little bird symbols in the sky. That's it. The sky squiggles, only sword court cards. right? So what does that mean? We can put some meaning then into birds having like a busyness of the mind specific to, like, court cards are often like people. Um, so like people experiencing the busyness of the mind, right? Little things like that. And then I went through laurels and different kind of headgear. I've got pictures of this, so we'll go through that as well. The sun, the sun had me then investigate sunflowers, and there's only two cards in the deck in the Rider-Waite-Smith that have sunflowers. It's the Queen of Wands and the Sun. And so my note here is the baby in the Sun card the Queen of Wands child? Is that why she's so anxious to get away and her cat is like on edge sitting in front of her? Then I decided to look for feathers in the deck, specifically feathers that show up as wings or just feathers that are alone. And like, is this a feather or is it leaf? Is it a red laurel? We don't really know. Looking at all the moons in the deck, all the stars, and then taking a look at the figures in the card. Where are they looking? Which ones are looking right at you and which ones are kind of looking like away or down? So there's only 13 cards in the whole deck that are like looking straight at you. And then I have a underline here under the word ambiguous and 12 and 21 because I guess I consider it ambiguous if that figure is actually looking like toward you, like out at the frame, or if they're kind of glancing away. And then I've got this big spread here for all the white lilies and the red roses. And then I drew in this special white flower, which is different from Death's banner. And then the white lily and the red rose are together on the Two of Wands. So this will be everything I can think of about white roses and white lilies and everything I can think about red roses and red. And then what could all of that mean? So that every time I see one of these flowers in the deck, I've got this whole library of meaning and information to pull on to help interpret that. And then I've got a blank page, and then we get into the stickers. So for my birds, you don't have to draw very well. You can do it in pencil first if you like. I have divine messages of hope, support, and personal freedom, but also busy thoughts or divine inspo/support, right? There can be multiple angles to things. And like, is this a bird on the Wheel of Fortune? Is it a dragon? What's going on here? What kind of creature is this? For laurels, who has a crown? Where are laurels? Are they on the world card? Is that a laurel wreath? Laurels here, the Empress and the Chariot both have laurels with their crown. Speaking of crowns, here's all the crowns in the deck. And then there's only 21 cards with figures with no head covering. Otherwise, everybody's got something going on. We've got bandages, headdresses, hoods, hats, and then all the knights in death have helmets. The moon, all the places you find the moon symbol. All the places you find stars. And what does that mean, having stars only on Empress, Chariot, Star, Hermit? And the Six of Cup has star-shaped flowers, right? Here's the big flower spread that we filled in just with flower meaning and imagery. And then we get into the stickers. So I'm just gonna like flip through here. Zero, and this one I started to fill in, and then my pens that I was using started to die. So what can you do? And then this is the spread for the Magician. So this is Magician. Then I have all of the ones together. So this is the spread for ones. Magician, all of the aces, which are ones in the pip suits, and then Wheel of Fortune and Sun both reduced down to a 1. Then individually, going through each of the pip ones, and we get to 2. So this is for all of the High Priestess, maybe upright and reverse, or however I end up filling it out. All of the 2s and the major arcanas above 10 that reduce to 2, and then individually the pip 2s. So that goes on for quite some time. And then we get into the higher major arcana, so 11, and then just a reminder, it reduces to 2. 12 to 3, 13 to 4, 14 to 5, 15 to 6, 16 to 7, 17 to 8, 18 to 9, 19 to 10, and back down to 1, 20 to 2, 21 to 3. And then I move into court cards. So pages, what does it mean to be a page? And then each page individually. Knights, what does it mean to be a knight? And then each knight individually. Queens, kings, and then just the courts as a group per suit. So just the fire court, the water court, the air court, and the earth court. Blank page, blank page, blank page, and then I have an astrological reference. So we'll go back to the pictures. So here's what I have filled out on my Fool page. Here's the Fool sticker. It's your journey. My go-to reference book is Rachel Pollack's A New Tarot Handbook. I guess the 2020 version. So I have the upright meaning, and then lower in the page I have the reversed meaning, and then just like a one shot that I can use. And then what does 0 mean? 10 reduces to 1. So where else are there zeros in the numbers? There's a 0 in the 10, and there's a 0 in the 2. But 0 is just a placeholder, because the 10 and the 2 are the numbers that remain, not the 0. And then where else are there, so 0 is a placeholder, so where else are there zeros in the deck? The opening of the hedge or the garden in the Ace of Pentacles, the monk's heads in the number 5 card, the round wafer in the dove's mouth in the Ace of Cups, and the wreath overall in the world. So these are just some 0 images throughout the deck. Also the little lizards on the fire court cards, the page, knight, king, that has a 0 imagery. And then all of the astrological symbols have this 0 circle in it as well. So that may represent more of like self and cosmic light, like the sun, an embodiment, a containment. So those are just the notes I have started with on 0. And then my pens were dying, and I want to use specifically like these archival ink pens so that this journal can last for a long time, even if I spill on it, even if it gets like weathered. So I stopped filling it out because I don't want to use just marker. And then I can go and reference this astrological wheel as well. So I'm going to make a different video breaking this down, but essentially, I learned this astrological setup from a book by Mary Kay Greer called Tarot for Yourself. And I know the regular way to deal with tarot and astrology is to call, like, Emperor is Aries first house and Hierophant is Taurus second house. And I don't do astrology like that, and I don't do tarot like that. I need a way to talk about the houses separate from the signs, separate from the planets. I don't want to have to use one card to use double duty as both a sign and a house marker. And I know there's the way to use the pip cards as the decans. So you have 36 pip cards representing three different slots of each sign instead of a card for a sign. And I don't really like that system either. I came into astrology first and then learned tarot, and all of the tarot astrologicals seem to be reliant on the natural zodiac or the ABC zodiac, where like Cancer is the fourth house. And that's just not what I practice. So this system is these cards here are representative of the house number. So everybody has Emperor as the first house, everybody has Hierophant as the second house, and so on. And then there's something in astrology called the planetary joys scheme. So the first house is called the helm, and Mercury finds his joy there. So I put Mercury here. The third house is known the house of goddess, and the moon finds her joy here. So I put the moon here. The fifth house is known as the house of good spirit, and Venus finds her joy here. So I put Venus here. Mars in the sixth house, Sun in the ninth house, Jupiter in the 11th, and Saturn in the 12th. The far planets are here on the side. And then finally for the signs come from the court cards, and it's cardinal is queens, fixed is kings, mutable is knights, and then we follow regular elements for the elements. Wands fire, cups water, swords air, pentacles earth. So Mercury, often represented by the magician, rules Gemini and Virgo, which are both mutable signs, so they'll both be knights. Gemini is a air mutable air, so that's going to be the Knight of Swords or the Knight of Air. And Virgo is mutable earth, so that's going to be the Knight of Pentacles. And that is what is in my tarot journal. Okay, do you have a tarot journal? What would you put in this tarot journal in the blank pages? In the earlier pages where I have the drawings of the different symbols in the tarot deck, what symbols would you include? So thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for making it this far. I have an October initiative where I need to make rent, and you can help me do that. So if you like this video, if I said anything that helped you or gave you inspiration, or if you like that I left this to the end, I appreciate even $2 would be so helpful. Okay, thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.